So I guess we could go ahead and get started, and as people start to trickle in, they can just join us wherever we're at. Um, I will start off. So I'll introduce us generally, and then I'll turn it over to you, Corinne. Do you have slides that you want to share?
So for this, we are going to kind of just have a round robin where
Okay.
we're going to keep it more conversational. So we don't have slides prepared, but we are going to talk each, kind of talk about our work, who are we, what we do, why we do it. And then unless the audience has other like pointed questions, I have some that I've written down that we can kind of talk amongst, our kind of the work that we're doing and
Yeah.
share some more content. So we wanted to be
Okay.
a little conversational.
Perfect. Okay, that sounds great. So, here I'll click through my slides here. So, hello everyone who has joined us. My name's Kelly Hickler. I'm co-chair of the still new-ish community engagement interest group. We just started in March of this year, so we're still a baby in our existence. And also on the call, I have Chris Holler, who is the other co-chair with me. Um, let's see, and it's good to see some familiar faces on the call. Thanks for joining us again. But for those of you who I haven't met before, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And just out of curiosity, maybe like show of hands. How many of you are members of the interest group? Okay. Well, if you're not already a member, oh, whoa, there's floating thumbs. I have not seen that. That's a new thing I haven't seen before. So, membership is free, and you don't have to be an APA member to join the interest group. So if you go to our website, apacommunityengagement.org, you can sign up there. And when you sign up, you automatically get our newsletter. It's a monthly newsletter. We also have a podcast on YouTube. Corinne's been a guest on the podcast. So glad to have you back. And we have a bunch of other resources on there on the website for you to check out. So please join our group and take a look at the website. I think that's all that I have. I think my last slide. Okay, that's for the end. That's for the end when we want to remind everyone where to sign up. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and go ahead and turn it over. Well, I guess before I turn it over to Corinne, briefly, I will mention, hopefully everyone saw the focus of today's talk. So we have these we do these rotating formats for our presentations. So this one is called Community Voices, where we have a panel of our own practitioners who are presenting different topics. So the topic of this meeting today is about youth engagement. And I hopefully you knew that before you signed up. I'm guessing why that's you're excited to learn about that. So now I'll turn it over to you, Corinne, and you can maybe introduce your team, however you want to do that. We're going to keep it kind of a bit loosey goosey and informal. We have a small enough group. We don't have to make it super formal, so we'll keep it light and conversational and fun. Okay, I'll shut up now.
Not at all. Yeah, thanks so much, Kelly, for having us. And Kelly and I first met. It was a year or so ago, where I was on her podcast, and it's just amazing the work that you've been doing, Kelly. And then I got to see you in person at the National Planning Conference, where she had an amazing like headband on and was asking kind of like pop up questions in the, like, main space where we all get together for all of the booths and everything, which was so much fun, and, yeah, Kelly just has sort of just a wealth of knowledge in so many things in planning and especially in community engagement, so, I just know she's such a great connector and loves to partner with other folks. And so when I heard about this opportunity, I thought it would be a great opportunity to have more youth engagement practitioners talk about the work that they do, why they do it, the projects that they've been working on, maybe some tips and tricks and best practices that they use. And so we'd like to be conversational with you all today. As sort of a side note, we all have a group that we formed, which is a community of practice, which was Ryan Lowe's idea over in Urban Minds. And so we've been meeting quarterly to be able to kind of like talk to each other, like learn from one another, and be able to kind of further the work that we're doing in a meaningful way. And so I'm going to have each of our guests, I'll go last. So each of our guests, maybe introduce yourself and the firm or organization that you're a part of, and then maybe just a kind of a round background, maybe a foundational background of what it is that you do and maybe why you do it. So I'm going to switch it over to Ryan first to start. Maybe we'll go Ryan, Stephanie, Rowan, and then I can go last. I'll round out our group. And then we have a couple of pointed questions, but if you ever have questions, put them in the chat or just ask them live. We'd be happy to kind of go back and forth with questions too. But Ryan, I'm going to give you the floor.
You. Thanks, Corinne. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Lowe. My pronouns are he, him, and I am the co-executive director of Urban Minds. Please forgive me. I am still getting over a cold, so I sound a little bit nasally today. So hope you bear with me. But yes, Urban Minds, we are a nonprofit organization based in Toronto, Canada. And our mission is to create meaningful ways for youth to shape equitable and sustainable cities. And we do this in several ways. We have a youth engagement consulting practice where we work with municipalities and civic organizations, agencies, and even developers and private sector partners to get youth involved in large scale development or civic initiatives or projects. And what that looks like is that we would work with our partner or our clients to develop youth engagement opportunities for youth to be sharing their input and voices in these projects and in a way shaping their built environment. We also have a youth leadership program called One Up Youth City Builders, and that is for high school students in Ontario. Completely free. We have conferences, workshops, tours, and we mentor high school chapters to get students introduced to the careers of planning, architecture, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really a lot of fun because a lot of students have no idea what planning is and what these different fields are. And even when I talk to our sponsors or partners, they always tell me that they wish they've had something like this growing up. So it's really a response to the lack of education and engagement in this field and in this industry. And lastly, we do workshops with both our youth audience at schools and classrooms and youth groups to teach them about city building. And we also do workshops with professionals like and speaking engagements like this, where we speak to our colleagues and peers about the best practices in youth engagement. So that's what we do. I hope that's what the link that you're looking for, Corinne. Oh, and I'll pass it over to Stephanie.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, everyone. I'm joining you from Montreal, more specifically from the nonprofit Metalude. We work on youth and child engagement, not only concerning planning or the built environment, but more broadly city building and how that can include culture and libraries and participation as such. We've consulted youth on how they want to be consulted. And we also work on play in the public realm or public space. So another way of including or considering children and youth in the city is considering how they play and where they play. And so we work mostly with municipalities and occasionally with other nonprofits. We partner with other nonprofits. And though I'm not a planner, an urban planner, I'm a cousin of the field. as an urban geographer, I share many affinities with planners. Um, Voila. And we are two at Metalude. My partner, Margaret Fraser, is not here today, but she comes also to the organization with really strong, solid background in inclusion and access. And so when we talk about children and youth, we're talking about inclusion, but we always try to, be more specific about who, which youth, and which children are we including. Thank you. Rowan?
Thanks all. Really a great pleasure to be here. And I find it really entertaining that, Corrin, you're bringing our American counterpart energy to this panel. I know we're bringing a very strong Canadian background to a group of American planners, but I hope you can learn what is relevant for you from our expertise. My name's Rowan. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the executive director at CityHive, based in Vancouver, Canada. Our mission is to transform the way that young people are engaged in shaping their cities and communities. And we've been around we turn 10 next year, which is wild. And a lot of parallels in our work and Ryan's work at Urban Minds. Our organizations have had really similar stories and trajectories of being developed and designed and led by the young people we're seeking to serve. So as an organization, we are a by youth for youth youth engagement organization. We're a not-for-profit, and we have two arms of our work. On the one hand, we run our own wide range of programs. We have a schools-based program focused on building civic literacy, civic education workshops that we do with over 1,200 students each year across the school districts in our region. And then we also have kind of mentorship programs and innovation lab programs for older youth, 18 to 30, focused on supporting BIPOC youth entering urban planning careers, young people interested in exploring what climate policy looks like in action in local government contexts. So a lot of different programming that we offer through kind of our classic nonprofit programming arm, but then in tandem with that, and we've always had a consulting and engagement arm as well, where we work primarily with local governments, but also our crown corporations here. So that's our transit authorities, our energy providers, and then other nonprofits more recently, supporting them to embed youth-led decision-making in their governance structures in their organizations as well. So really wide range of things that we do, but really excited to get to be here as well and share from the West Coast perspective, if any of you are over on this side of the continent.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Ryan and Stephanie and Rowan, for all of your backgrounds. And it's really great to be able to kind of have this kind of collection of kind of thought leaders. These are some like heavy hitters. All three of these folks are doing such great work where they are. And so it's really fun to be able to kind of compare notes and, be able to learn from one another and, help lift up and support, and sort of like when one of us are successful, we all are successful. That's kind of how we feel about our group. So we're often sharing notes and cross-collaborating, and actually went to one of the National Planning Conference, the OPPI conference, and spoke with Ryan over there in Canada, which was super fun, and finding a lot of different ways to connect with, youth engagement practitioners, even in the UK and Australia. So trying to pull in as many folks as possible. So my background, Corrin Wendell, and pronouns are she, her. And so I'm the founder and executive director of YEP, Youth Engagement Planning, which I believe is the only standalone nonprofit that focuses on teaching kids K through 12 about urban planning and civic engagement and making a difference in their community. And then we also come alongside planners and help them to incorporate youth voices into the planning process. And so we've been doing that for almost 20 years. The organization was sort of founded out of grad school. I have my degrees in architecture and my master's in planning. And so after my master's degree, kind of was aware that there wasn't a lot of youth education in the K through 12 system. I did not learn about planning until after my architecture degree, and I was very disappointed about it. And I kind of didn't want anyone else to have that experience. And I know Ryan and my other counterparts here have similar stories. And so that, coupled with going into the profession as a new planner and learning that community engagement wasn't inclusive enough and youth were often left out. So the organization really kind of stands on that foundation. So we're two-part educational, going into K through 12 classrooms and teaching. We have programming and curriculum around that. We have a children's book called Ava Tanner, the City Planner. We have a Girl Scout City Planning patch with curriculum. So we have these educational pieces. And then also on the consulting side, we partner with firms, organizations. Oftentimes we're hired on to incorporate youth voices into a planning process. And we'll get into maybe some details on what those experiences look like. And so it's been really fun. And I've been a public sector planner for almost 20 years also. I was running YEP all along the side of being a city planner or a community development director for cities, and stepped away from that last year to run YEP full time. So really excited and proud of that. But that is why this group is so fun and special, because there's just a wealth of information and knowledge from all of the folks here. Well, I want to maybe have maybe a question for the group. Who has included youth in planning in the work that they've done? Can maybe raise some hands or some thumbs or however you want to answer. Okay. Oh, wonderful. I'm seeing a lot of hands. Oh, great. I love this question. And when we do it at conferences, it's like maybe 2 or 3 people raise their hand in a group of like 300 or 400. So we always say until the entire room raises their hand, like we have a lot of work to do. And just kind of changing the mindset of who's included, who's a stakeholder, who's invited to the table. So I want to go back to the group and kind of maybe start with Ryan again. Maybe to kind of talk about why youth for you was important, why that segment of the population, and maybe sort of the value that you think it brings to the work that you do. So, and I'll ask that to all 3 of my counterparts here.
Sure. There's a personal side to that story, to that answer, and also a professional side to that answer. Corinne, you mentioned how you started YEP right after grad school, and we talked about this. It's a very similar story that a journey that I share. It was during my master's degree in planning. I had to do basically similar to a thesis, a research project, and I grew up as a camp counselor, worked with kids a lot. And the campers asked me, during that period of time, they asked me, what do you want to do when I finish my master's? I told them urban planning. Again, they had no clue what I was talking about. And so that really gave me the spark of thinking about how we can better educate and engage young people in these processes. But also when I reflect and observe how community engagement is done, typically when we see open houses or public meetings being held, you look around, you see the same usual suspects, shall I say, the same kind of demographics, people who have a lot of time and the capacity to participate, yet we are planning and building communities for the next generation. So they're going to be the ones who bear the consequences of the decisions that we make, good or bad ones. And so that really was the motivation behind thinking more deeply about youth engagement, what that looks like, and how we can make it more effective.
That's wonderful. Stephanie, do you want to share?
Sure. Me too. It's personal and political. Before co-founding Metalude, I was a city councilor, and I had to make all kinds of decisions with other people, including with planners, about the borough, about the city, about pardon me, the territory. And rarely, if ever, there was never children and youth involved. And as a new mother, I got in politics because of this perspective that my child allowed me to have on the city. I was annoyed. Where are the children and where are the youth? And are we asking, considering, are we listening? Are they at all setting the agenda? And so after politics, I really wanted to keep working on that question, because I was told, well, nobody's doing it. Nobody's doing it. Who do we hire? Nobody's doing it. So I was like, well, let's like go do that then. And I think the value of bringing in youth and children, because we work with children as young as 4, is that there's a there's something specific about a minor status, having a minor status and being dependent. And I don't want to see children and youth only as dependent. Of course, there's enormous agency, but there's also this particularity of having a minor status. And what does that mean? And who do you depend on for what? And are we planning the city for those kinds of relationships? And so I think there's a value to examining that and to understanding that as a tension in planning and in consultation as well. Like it's always there. And I think there's added value because it's fun. You can't do boring consultations with kids because they just won't show up. Like they'll just, start daydreaming about something else. So like it's fun and I want to have fun and I think other people want to have fun and I think other people should have fun. And so I think that's a huge added value and I just, the more people do intergenerational, the more the different methods and ways and postures and attitudes we use in child engagement can impact how we do it with adults. So I like reversing it, like not what we can take from adult-centric consultation, but what can y'all take from how we do child and youth engagement? Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Adult.
answers. Yeah, Stephanie, you're so right. And it's clear that, yeah, we're not being as inclusive as we can. And when you plan for youth, you plan for everyone. You're just naturally then, thinking of all the different aspects of your community. Rowan, do you want to share?
Yeah, I can share a little bit, and obviously parallels, I think, with my co-panelists here. But I bring a unique vantage point of not actually being a founder, unlike my co-panelists. So I wasn't around, but our organization was founded by two young people. They were actually still finishing their undergrad degrees, so quite young. And they were living through the era where millennial generation was being painted as the avocado toast generation, the apathetic, have no interest, aren't engaged. They don't show up, they don't try. But then on the flip side, their personal lived experience was seeing young people leading record-breaking climate marches and movements for social justice and equality. And so there was this really strong dissonance happening between what the media and kind of public perceptions of young people were versus what their lived experience was. And so that was the origins of CityHive, was an effort to try and combat that and try and be that bridging organization that can bring together our urban planners and local governments and decision makers with the young people in our community. I think one of the other things that has really stood out to me over time is when young people are engaged, it is persistently on quote unquote youth issues. And so if there's a skate park going into a neighborhood, yeah, we'll engage youth on the skate park, but not around the transportation infrastructure or new rezoning or development or official community plans and kind of major projects that are happening in our communities. Because no, those are too big. The young people don't have enough context, insight. They're too naive, too idealistic. They're not going to get it. And so I think that's one of the things that we're constantly, and I think everyone on this panel is constantly coming up against, is recognizing that young people have the really powerful vantage point, as Stephanie put it, in this kind of dependent capacity, but also as students, as transit users, as gig workers, as young parents, if we're using our UN definition of youth, right up to 30, 34. So it I think is really helpful for us to broaden our scope of how valuable those opinions can be. And when we do a lot of work with schools, and when we bring planners into schools, it's so often like, oh, this will be sweet. I'll be able to report some like nice pictures in my final report. It's going to be lovely. And then at the end of the day, they're like, wait, I have to actually like incorporate all this really heavy hitting feedback on how we're going to integrate our transit infrastructure with our parks, with our schools, with our local housing zoning. And it's like, oh, wait, they had so much to say. So I think that's something that is a big part of why we exist, but also why we continue needing to exist and continue doing this work.
Yeah, I think you make excellent points for youth to be a part of all of the topic areas and not just some, and not be so selective or like softballs, not just, give them easy questions. And so that really kind of is so well-rounded. And I too believe that, youth bring this optimism, this, kind of they're just internally, inclusive already. They're naturally inquisitive. And they bring so much to the table that the value of your plans are just that much more capable of serving the entire community. And the reasoning behind it is kind of endless for me. Like we could just like go on and on. Like, why wouldn't you include youth instead of why would you? And there are a lot of barriers, to some folks who are sort of entering this space. And actually wanted to maybe ask some of our folks in the room here, the folks that said that they did include youth. Do you maybe want to share why you included youth and maybe what was the outcome or maybe the benefit that you saw? I'd love to hear some experiences that you've had.
I can go first.
All right,
I
thanks.
Yeah, of course. I know it's always good to have someone to go first. We were wrapping up and worked on the Madison Sustainability Plan, which was a great thing, and youth was a very centerfold of this. And it was probably the most knowledgeable youth I have ever worked with, like knowing about what zero waste is, what renewable energy was. And Madison's doing very progressive things when it comes to sustainability. So they were some of the most passionate people coming to some of the events we were going to. It wasn't even specific for use, some of the pop events we were doing, but they were just so incredibly passionate and wanted to voice their opinions and have a say in the future.
Absolutely. Well, and Abigail, I think on my side, on like my side list, I've been meaning to talk with you about the work that you do because I see you're out of Chicago, right?
Yeah, you were correct altogether.
Mhm. And you recently were working with one of the cities, I think, too, doing some youth engagement work, or maybe it was more planning work, but included youth too. I follow your work, so I've been just
Oh,
meaning, yeah,
yeah,
just gonna talk to you more about that.
we do. Sometimes we're just hired on to be part of the team to specialize in like BIPOC or youth engagement, just to really focus and zoom in on that effort because it's really hard for people to do all in house for planning projects or initiatives. So we do some great stuff, but I would love to connect with everyone here, and I'm super excited we're talking about this. I feel like I am trying to learn every day how to better engage youth.
That's amazing. Others who want to share about a project or a plan that they've worked on with youth?
I'll share an example from a project I worked on last year. The reason we wanted to engage with youth is because it's a long range plan, and so it's 20 years from now. It's like the time frame, and that's who would be impacted. So we had people involved through like visioning sessions, focus groups, different meetings. And then the most like significant part for me was when in the adoption process and like city council meetings, they would participate in that too. And it's cool to hear their voice and hear them just participate in that process.
That's amazing. We always say if you want something approved, have the youth come to that city council meeting and like 10 out of 10 times it's like that, will just get you that much more, emphasis into the approval process. It is so impactful. Other experiences I want to share. I know we have a couple in the chat trying to read as well. Is it Ani in grad school passed out disposable cameras to adults and young kids and had them take photos. Amazing. And the perspective of the kids. Yeah, being closer to the ground. That is exceptional. And then George working in transportation. So youth, yes, are constrained or empowered by the decisions. Yes, and yeah, kind of nudging people forward in the decision making is amazing also. Yeah, much agreed. Other examples or other folks?
I think Justin has a hand raised.
Justin, okay. Yeah, Justin, we love to hear from you. Okay, we can come back to you too.
Am I come there now?
Yes, yeah, there you are.
Okay. Technology. There's always a gremlin that's hiding inside your computer that's trying to disrupt you. So I'm a planner out of Rochester, New York, and I've been doing it for about 20 years or so now. and worked on a variety of different plans throughout the Western New York area. But in a couple of the communities that we've worked in, we've had specific youth outreach as part of our overall strategy. And the way that I always frame it and tell folks about it, because they always question, like, well, why are you reaching out to, kids and youth? They don't pay taxes. They're going to be graduated from school and so on and so forth. The way that I frame it to them is that if you get the input of kids, for one, they can be really insightful with some of the things that they provide. And two, I kind of flip this script on it in the fact that I tell folks that if you get an idea of what the kids are looking for, that's usually also what young parents are looking for their families when they're looking to move to places and everything else. So if kids are looking for outdoor spaces, areas to, do recreation and everything else like that, families are going to end up looking for that too, as a means of a place to move to or live in. So you're kind of, the cliche plan for the end in mind. You're using the kids as the vehicle for getting to the families to figure out how you can draw them in, which in turn, makes long-term planning work. So that's the way that we do it.
Yeah, those are really great examples and such a testament to how you can include more than you normally would have. And I think the more information is always the better in the planning process. And you're more informed and you can make better decisions and, strategic plans and CIPs and, budgeting just gets that much more emphasized for what the needs of the community are. I think we had a hand from Stephanie. You want to respond? Sure.
Yes. I worked on a project also in the city of Rochester for an urban forest master plan update. So it was about trees. And I feel like trees are kind of like a easier concept for, people to kind of wrap their heads around. So we did a bunch of pop-ups and we did an activity called Love Letter to a Tree. So we brought kind of like a fake tree and then we had people cut out leaves and they could write their input on the leaves themselves. So obviously parents and adults had more of like, the big benefits, but a lot of kids had like cool stories about like, I like to swing on this tree or I like to, sit under this tree for shade. So it was kind of nice to see like the comparisons of how we look at trees as adults and as kids.
Is exceptional. And I think that is just the lesson in the more fun and creative and exciting a project is, no matter what topic area, the more just response you're going to get. And I think from the planner's perspective, just we're all very passionate about what we do. So I think it just really deepens that passion and just makes the work more enjoyable as well. That's an excellent example. I wanted to ask our panelists also, maybe starting with Ryan again. We'll go Ryan, Stephanie, Rowan. Maybe share with the group either a current project that you're currently working on, or maybe one of your favorite projects that you worked on, and maybe kind of what it consisted of, and then maybe some outcomes that were really positive with that project. Sorry, Ryan, I'm putting you on the spot first.
No problem.
So I know you got one.
Yeah. Not putting me on the spot. That's what I signed up for. So, so there is a project that we wrapped up, I'd say maybe last 1 or 2 years ago. Still had some of my favorite moments because of some of the things that the youth participants shared with me. So it's for a suburban municipality just north of Toronto. The municipality wanted to create what's called a secondary plan here in Ontario, which is a smaller district plan, I suppose, in American terminology. And it was the premise, or rather the impetus of that plan was because it's anchored around this shopping mall that is going to be redeveloped and intensified. So the mall operator and the developer wanted to add a lot more density to that shopping center. And while a lot of the adults, the homeowners and people in in that community were up in arms because of genuinely valid concerns like traffic congestion, the lack of additional infrastructure that would need to support that growth, we were tasked with engaging young people in that neighborhood, and asked of their inputs on this plan. There is a high school just outside of the study area, and we did a workshop with their grade 9 geography class, and we had them each person sketch out their neighborhood. And it was really fascinating to see, like, in their sketches, what sort of features they included in the sketch. So, yes, that shopping mall came up the most in all of the sketches because that's kind of the center of that community. But things like trees came up a lot in the sketches, and cars, because it is a suburban neighborhood, and the kids were drawing cars in their sketches, and that's like the most dominant way of moving around. So even just a simple exercise like that, it really conveyed a lot of how the youth perceive their built environment and the things that they pay attention to. We did another workshop with an immigrant youth center in the study area. And I will always remember this quote because one of the participants, when we asked them about the different uh, types of density and different types of land uses that could go into this area, the participant told us that she would much rather see more employment, more mixed use going into this neighborhood because she uh, would like her parents to work closer to home. Her parents are commuting really long distances and spending a lot of time on the road. She wants to spend more time with her parents if they were working closer to home. And for a teenager to say that to you is already mind-boggling. But at the same time, it really shows and it humanizes this idea or this concept that planners know very well. We need to have more density to be more sustainable. We need to have more um, mixed uses so that people live within a more accessible 15-minute city that we all kind of yearn for and work towards. Um, these are all kind of concepts straight from our lectures and textbooks, but youth stories and their perspectives really humanize that whole idea of wanting not just a bedroom community, but a more complete community. So that's one of my favorite projects. It's still going on. It's still very contentious amongst the adults, but that really crystallized, how important it is to engage youth in these types of conversations.
That's amazing.
For
I
a
love how
teenager to tell you that is just what?
But it's really about how family relations are at the heart of mobility, or mobility is, overlapping or with our, anyways, family relations, family dynamics. One of my favorite projects was Le Sol est en lave. So we work exclusively in French, in Quebec. The Floor is Lava was the name of the consultation. We like to give names to our engagement projects so that you understand right away the vibe. So The Floor is Lava was a consultation about the city's new mobility and urban planning plan. That sounds repetitive. I'm translating directly from French.
Say French.
The master plan. Le plan de l'urbanisme et de la mobilité de la ville de Montréal. So its horizon was 2050, and we were in the validation phase. This had gone through several different engagement processes over several years, and we were in 2024, and this was the final version that the city's planners wanted to present to the population. And so we organized these workshops in different libraries across the city. And it was an open house or drop in. You could come when you wanted. And we had different moments in this activity. And the first moment was loose parts play. And so we had like a carpet full of loose parts, random objects. We found that it was most successful when objects didn't look like blocks or feel like blocks, because blocks, I don't know, there's something with blocks. So we strongly recommend avoiding blocks. We asked them, this whole premise, the kids were on a mission, and within the mission was like the city's vision, question of consent. Like we used the mission to sort of package the whole thing. It was the narrative. It was, and if you accept this mission, you get to, and it was build your ideal street. And this long moment of connection to self was really important, so that because the children, many of them were accompanied by parents or siblings, and some parents couldn't help but be like, "Mommy jogs, like, where's the jogging area?" So we wanted the kids to connect to whatever they were feeling in their experiences, which of course is about mommy jogging too, but not only. And that loose parts play was amazing, because then it set the stage for, tell me about this street and what is it? And children really described like a 15 or 3-minute city. And we had different phases. So then, okay, let's talk about it. And then like vote, sort of using a democracy type method to show random images that the planners had drawn up of the city of the future, and sort of have the kids go like, what did the adults get right? What did they forget? And I always forget the third one, but we had 3 colored stickers. And it was really interesting, to hear what, they saw cargo bikes and they were like, sure, but like, can I also ride my own bike? And one of the things I think that came up, and this is maybe specific to our context, but in Montreal, we speak a lot about making school street corners safe, school street corners. And the kids didn't talk to us about school. Like the lava destroyed everything, and the kids were like not rebuilding schools. That wasn't their priority. Their priority was Dollarama, Costco, like a pharmacy. I don't know. Dollar store, pharmacy, like their favorite shops and their friends' houses. And so I think it's really important to remember that children don't just go to school. Like they were telling us, like, sure, we have to go to school, but my favorite place to go is Dollarama and my friend's house. And so, maybe when we're making parking lots at the big box center, we're not thinking that child pedestrians are going to be there, but they're like, yeah, I love going to the pharmacy to get hair supplies. Like one child told us that in particular. So I think it's just also checking our I always do this because I forget the English word, our englement,
Biases
our
or
biases.
assumptions. Yeah.
Like that children shouldn't take interest in in the big box store, that children shouldn't want to go and consume the way we do. Children, so that was really eye-opening. And yeah, it was really eye-opening. Yep.
I think that is so outstanding, and it really just refreshes every perspective that we've had as like grown-up planners too. I feel like we're brought back to like our youngest self when we hear those things and, trying to make sense of it. And then you're like, well, of course that's the way you would think, when you're youth, and how much value that brings to the entire conversation. And I would agree with you. In the US, we have a lot of safe routes to schools. I know everybody here is familiar with that. And that is maybe the number one funded thing, or the only thing that gets sidewalks in a community. And it's not the only thing. And so I think people forget they're not just walking to school, they're walking everywhere in the community. Safe routes everywhere, not just to school. It's like a new t-shirt. Make. Now, Rowan, do you want to share your a project that you've done or are doing?
Yeah, I love this, and I love hearing about these projects. They bring me so much joy. One of my favorite projects of all time that we got to participate in was, so in our region, we're a non-amalgamated region, so we have actually 21 municipalities that are all within the Metro Vancouver region, and all served by mostly one transit authority who provides our rapid transit and bus transit. We have a small ferry as well, transit system, and it's called TransLink. And they were doing their long-range transportation plan for the region called Transport 2050 a couple years ago. And they decided to really focus on getting youth input and youth voice. And I noticed, I think it was George in the chat, talking about how important youth perspectives are as transit users in many urban regions. And so instead of just saying, hey, let's have a focus group, hey, let's have some light touch engagement, we were able to propose and work with them on a multi-year-long engagement plan with young people, where the first step was we created a group of 20. I use advisory council was the language that we used, but it wasn't really an advisory council. It was more of an activation council. So it was 20 young people. They were young adults in this case. So it was 18 to 30-year-olds. But they were then trained and resourced through budgets and honoraria and training to go and deliver their own community engagement projects with their peers and community. And so they ended up going into their university classrooms, into their neighborhood, their cultural and religious organizations that they're a part of, all across the region. And they were really selected for a really wide range of diversity geographically and in many other ways. And so they, in the first phase of the project, which was fall 2019, went out, did all these workshops. And instead of hearing from just 20 young people, which I think is like a pretty normal, focus group size, we got to hear from hundreds of young people from all across the region. They submitted all of their reports. These young people also got to build the skills of facilitation and community engagement and design. Many of them have actually gone on to become planners and work in this field as well. But they all fed their feedback up into the process. And then they were engaged again as a smaller, they did the public engagement again in phase 2 of the project. And then in phase 3, which was the validation phase, the project was just brought to that group of 20 young people. And that was over 3 years in the end because of COVID. There were some delays. We did have to replace some folks who moved out of the region over that 3-year process, but we had about 60% retention throughout the entire 3-year process of the same people coming back over and over again. And I think one of the greatest pieces that I love to speak to of that is not only the opportunity to engage directly with young people, but to use any youth engagement as an opportunity for skills development and capacity building in community and really building on that and kind of like the ripple effects then that can have. But another real highlight from that project was the way that they reported back. Because it was a longer term project, instead of young people showing up, providing their input into the ether and then never knowing what happens to it and can often feel quite disenfranchising and tokenistic, because we had this core group of people who were engaged intentionally over a longer period of time, the TransLink team we were working with, they took all of their information and they actually laid it out kind of in this flow chart of like, here's everything we heard. Here's what we couldn't address because it's not within our jurisdiction. Like, these are suggestions that we couldn't do anything with, and here's why. Here's the things that we could address, and here's where you're going to find them in the next phase of this report. Here's how we've incorporated this feedback, and here's how. And then here's some other pieces that we couldn't address, and here's a different reason why. We've decided, they were deprioritized. We only heard them from a small number of people, and therefore they ended up not being relevant. So I think that reporting back process, and then going through that with the young members of the council and saying, here's what we've done with your information and why, was actually probably one of the biggest highlights of that entire experience. And yeah, it was really, really impactful. And then the really nice bonus is we'd created this lovely community of young people that even after their council roles had technically concluded, when the TransLink team was going in to build their they had like an equity implementation project where they were looking at this big plan. What are our equity considerations and implementing? We then had a bit of a focus group where we could invite those same people back and say, hey, you're really familiar. We now have this great relationship with you. Do you want to come weigh in with other stakeholders from government, from other local institutions, from business, and be a part of those conversations? So that was a really huge, massive project. Not everyone can always afford or have the capacity to do something at a scale, but there's little nuggets, I think, within it that we can scale to our own context. And then, I just wanted to also shout out, I can't remember who said, I was speaking earlier, was it Stephanie maybe, about the urban forest project. We also recently did an urban forest project with high school students in North Vancouver, a local municipality here. And that was like such a rewarding opportunity to hear from young people around how they see greenery in their community and in their city. And what they want that to look like. And so I appreciated hearing another story of another urban forest plan, because it is a great accessible opportunity to engage even younger youth as well.
Yeah, thanks, Rowan. That is such an important concept to just have that feedback loop. I see those comments in the chat too, and creating those relationships and partnerships, and then you kind of have those forever, and moving forward, which is the amazing part I think about the engagement process, and incorporating youth on as many kind of opportunities as come forward, and giving them the opportunity to opt in on other kind of projects and different things that are happening in that community is so important. I wanted to see if there were any questions or follow-up questions from those 3 examples. Anyone had any? Follow-up questions that came up?
I would love if just anyone had some big lessons learned. That would be fantastic to hear.
I have one that I would love to jump in with, only because it's been very recent, so it's very top of mind. And I think for those of us, especially if you've been doing youth engagement a while, and Abigail, it sounds like maybe you are coming with a little bit more of that expertise, I have found myself coming in with certain assumptions around what the young people in a room are going to value or speak to. And I think it's very different than the assumptions that sometimes our planning counterparts will make when we're working with clients and partners. But one of the big ones that shook our foundations a little bit this spring, and is a reason adaptability and flexibility is a core part of our value set and mandate as an organization, is that historically, when we've asked young people, what are the top issues that matter to you? There has been a pretty consistent list in our region around climate and the environment, housing and affordability, transportation, mental health, and jobs. And those bounce around in all kinds of different ways, but it's been kind of that list. One of the new ones that was brand new to us, and we're actually having to reassess how we talk about things, was taxes. So I think it was really fascinating through 2025 specifically. We were having a lot of conversations. We had a few elections in the last 12 months as well in our region. And for the first time ever, we were hearing many, many young people in our neighborhood, in our networks, and in our programs being like, I'm really worried about taxes. Do they know what taxes are? Not necessarily. Do they know what taxes do or what they're going to impact their life? Not necessarily. But they're like, taxes matter a lot to me. And so I think for me, that was more just a reminder of just continuing to be really open and receptive to where the conversation goes and where the media ecosystem is bringing young conversations. And so that was, I think, one of the big lessons learned I had in the last 12 months is continuing to not get too static or make too many assumptions, even around where, as an expert, I feel like sometimes I can speak to what young people care about. And so that's yeah, great comment in the chat there, Lauren. Absolutely. And also, I think I'm not too worried about that being the biggest stress. But I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. Other comments or questions that have popped up? Or other responses to Abigail's question too, from our panelists.
I can go next. To respond to Abigail's question, I think a big lesson learned, not from the project that I talked about, but for another project that we wrapped up recently, was the collaboration with teachers, like going into classrooms and doing activities. I feel like it's a common experience across Canada and the US, but I think more acutely so here in Ontario, which is the teachers just being very overworked and very under-resourced. And so for our project, where we really try to capture as many student voices as possible by inviting teachers to just show a video and do an online trivia quiz with their students. We try to make it as simple as possible. Like, just this is going to take 15-20 minutes max. We still had a lot of trouble with uptake because teachers just are bombarded with these types of requests, and we really had to pivot and really try to make it so that it's just as easy as possible, but recognizing that maybe there's also a huge relationship building piece that should have been done sooner. So lessons learned, but I think even with the handful of schools that participated, we got some really valuable insights from the students. And yeah, like I think it's still a very useful tactic to go through schools, but we just have to be very mindful of how um, the partnership with teachers is going to play out and how much time that might take.
That's a great point. Stephanie, do you have a lesson or lessons learned?
Yes, I do, but maybe I see that somebody has a question and I'm wondering if we could.
Yeah, let's take a question. I know. Is it Ani? Do you have a question?
Thank you. And it could be a little bit too deep for the last 3 minutes, but coming from the Los Angeles area, and I think a lot of us in major metropolitan cities in the U.S. are dealing with this now. But in terms of engagement, when it comes to fears of ICE, do you have any thoughts on that? Thank you.
Yeah. Does anyone want to go first on that? For me, so I'm in the Twin City area here. And so we have a very, our governor's, Governor Walz. And so we have a very strong perspective with, how, our state is kind of handling ICE and even even my church, even into schools, like what our responses should be in terms of that. But there is obviously a real fear. And when we talk about, leaning on, I would lean on sort of the best practices that we have for more trauma informed engagement, more ways to be more sensitive to, we're always going to incorporate this into how we do youth engagement, but maybe bringing an element of, just opting in and choice and maybe varying methods to be able to reach different students who are comfortable, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's after school, or maybe in other organizations that maybe they're already a part of, to be able to reach youth in a way that is not going to be scary for them. It's a real fear that's happening. And so those are sort of the principles that I would press on to be very, intentional with the partner who you're, partnering with, or, the lead of that group, to be able to, have sort of questions answered in the, in the beginning of what to expect with the, with the students, finding safe spaces for them to be interacting. And so whether that's just online, maybe it's more, maybe it's not in person. So those would sort of be my top of mind, areas that I would press into. I don't know if my other panelists have other ways that they would go about that in terms of sort of a fear-based situation or not wanting to participate.
One thing I think I would just add, and I'm conscious of our time, but I think we can't ask people to engage if their basic needs aren't being met. I think that's like maybe going back to some engagement basics around like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's one way of thinking about it, that if people are hungry or tired or scared, I don't think they're going to be able to offer thoughtful intellectual feedback on drawbacks and benefits to urban planning conversations, even if we are trying to make them as simple and accessible as possible. And so I think for me, like I'm also I think Corrin has given a lot of like really tangible, explicit examples of like how we can try and build that safety and reduce the fear factor, but also conscious that sometimes there are times and places that aren't appropriate to be engaging, or that we need to prioritize other needs for the young people that we're working with. Maybe we're not working in that context in the same way right now, so I won't suggest that I'm an expert by any means on what you're going through in terms of handling the situation with ICE, but we have had experiences of like we're ensuring for engaging with young people experiencing very real poverty that we are providing access to food, to honoraria, to shelter, to bathrooms and showers and things like that. So I think those kinds of spaces can, that reframing of like how are we ensuring needs are being met before we're asking anything extractive, to be honest, of the young people we're engaging with is a really important reframe.
Yeah, wonderfully said, Rowan. I think that's amazing. Well, I think in the interest of time, I want to respect your time and getting to the rest of your day. But I want to thank Kelly and Ryan and Stephanie and Rowan for coming today to chat together all about youth engagement. And I don't know if my counterparts want to put their maybe websites in the chat if the folks who are either maybe going to listen to this later or if they're going to be able to contact your organizations to get more information or reach out to you. I think that would be amazing. But Kelly, I'll turn it back over to you, maybe to close us out. Kelly, I don't think we hear you. If you're, uh-oh, is your mic being funny? Let's see. Yeah, not yet.
Okay, how about now?
Oh yeah, there. Yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, we're back. I'm just unplugged. We're done with this mic. So yes, thank you, Corrin, and all of the panelists who joined for your thoughts. I know we're a few minutes over, so thank you everyone for staying. Yeah, if you want to put your contact info in the chat, and everyone's linked, all the panelists' LinkedIn info is in the Eventbrite description, and I'll also include it. I'm going to do a written summary of this meeting that I'll send out in the newsletter. So you'll get it through that. And if you don't get the newsletter, well, then you need to sign up for the interest group and then you'll get the newsletter. So that will be maybe sometime in the next 2 weeks. Well, I get the next newsletters. Yeah, so they're in the next 2 weeks. I'll send out the link to the recording of this and the written summary. And we are very collaborative, the nature of community engagement. We're very collaborative interest group. So if anyone has specific topics that you would like to learn about, if you yourself are interested in being a presenter, you want to nominate someone, please reach out to us. hello@apacommunityengagement.org. Let us know. But with that, I'll stop blabbering on. I know everyone has work that they need to get to. So thank you everyone so much again, and we'll see you on the next webinar.